When I was Christian, because I was Christian back in 2016, because I was one of those hate-filled teenagers that I didn't like LGBT people. I didn't like people that liked pro-choice. I was indoctrinated that way, and I acted like a lot of these people, on TikTok. They'll come in here and say, F you, Jesus loves you, you're going to burn forever. That's how I acted. And then when I deconstructed, I really saw, what a bigot I was, and my views really changed when I deconstructed.
Yeah, that's what made you shift on the LGBT position? Because there's not much in the religion except a couple of passages.
In Christianity, especially the Christian churches that are not LGBT friendly.
Yeah,
they'll teach you like a lot of people say in the Greek it says man shall not lie with child. In the Bible it says man shall not lie with another man. So they use that really doesn't mean child. So therefore being LGBT is wrong. That's kind of what they base their whole agenda off of, is that one thing right there.
Just that one line. I think there's a second one, but I don't remember what it is.
I think it's Sodom.
Yeah.
I think it's Sodom and Gomorrah, if I can't remember. If I remember correctly.
I was thought where there's two in either Deuteronomy or Leviticus, but it's a shame because, I mean, the people that I've spoken to, they're all still of the opinion that being LGBT of any type is a choice. People choose to do it, and they can turn it on and turn it off, and we know that's not true anymore, and yet they won't shift their position. That's why you get into the psychological makeup and reason. Religion is always there, and it is has a grouping impact, right? Because they reinforce the ideas within the group.
A lot of people that I grew up with in church, and still people that I know today, even in my own family, they feel the same way. They're not for the LGBT community. And I'm like, they don't choose that life. Now I will tell you this: at my work, when I used to be on night shift, there's a lady on night shift that is married to a woman, and she told me that it's because of her preference, that she has been with several dudes in the past, and she just preferred to be with a woman. And I was like, but most people are born that way. I mean, there may be a little bit that they end up choosing to be with the same sex for whatever reason, but
well, there is bisexuality, but I mean, I think of people like Elton John and George Michael, the singer, right? Who, there's a lot of social pressure, especially if you go back 10, 20 years, when a lot of people that are in your churches and stuff have developed their own opinions, learned their opinions from. There's a lot of social pressure to be male or female, right? So these people try, or maybe, I know George Michael had a from Soft Cell had an interest in all people, pansexual or whatever. I had a friend who was in a relationship with them for a while, and then eventually it just like, seems like as they get older, they just realize that I was kind of playing around but this really is my interest, and I'm going to admit it to myself. Not that there's anything wrong with going through a phase of trying to figure that out by doing a little experimentation. I mean, hell, that's how you learn what flavor of ice cream you like, right? So, but I started to watch a little bit of that reality show, I Am Jazz. You seen that? It's been out for a while now. About a transgender girl.
Yeah, I Am Jazz. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then I suggest to everybody here who's listening to watch just the first 15 minutes of the first episode, and you'll get it. This was a kid who knew at age 3 that she was a girl in a boy's body. It is so obvious, and to deny that exists is just ridiculous. The thing that drives me crazy now is when people say, you see these posts that say science proves you're a boy or a girl, and if you say otherwise, you're going against science.
A lot of people like to use, when they're talking about transgender, they like to bring up gender dysphoria and say they just have that. You do realize that, like, a lot of people that are trans don't have that.
But what is gender dysphoria? Gender dysphoria, to my knowledge, I mean, I've got to do more study on this still, but gender dysphoria is feeling that you're in the wrong body, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like body dysphoria, where you can like look at yourself in the mirror, and oh, I don't like the way I look.
Look up, Google Robert Sapolsky, Sapolsky, and gender. He's a Stanford professor emeritus in neurology and paleontology. Has a very good presentation on how the brains of trans people are different, and that's one place where it comes from. I mean, there's different things. It could be hormonal, and it could be genitalia that don't match the chromosomal makeup, and there's many different types of causes. But that one piece alone shows that the brain piece is significant. And if you're born that way, you're born that way. I'm sorry. It's really no different than being born with a minority feature. How many people are born with 6 fingers? How many people are born with red hair? They're there. So just because it doesn't make sense to you or because you've never met one doesn't mean you should say they don't exist.
And when I left Christianity and I completely deconstructed from religion, period, what really the thing is even when I was Christian, I didn't look at people who were in the LGBT community and just have actual hatred toward them. I just would always feel like they were in sin and they were going to hell. Even though I lived what the Bible would say is sin myself. Growing up, I was never really like a huge devout Christian, but there were times where out of my, I guess you could say, religious trauma syndrome, because I did stay in Christianity a lot of my life just because I didn't want to go to hell.
Yeah.
And I did have those type of negative views and ideologies just because I didn't want to go to hell, and I wanted to be on the side of this God that I thought was true and was going to send me to hell forever instead of giving a crap about any of these people. But I've never had hatred toward them, and I never looked at them as different than me.
Well, that's something. I mean, I know people that are similar. They have no hatred of LGBT people, other than wanting to avoid them and not having them in their life. But if one of their kids came out, they would tell them, "You've made the wrong choice." They would send them into conversion therapy. What's that?
I said, you actually know people like that in real life?
Yeah, I do. And that's the scary thing. That's the scary part to me, because it's like, okay, at least you don't hate them, and you're not going to do violence upon them or anything. You are going to vote against them. I mean, it's kind of one of my typical tests I ask people who say they're not discriminated against them. It's like, did you vote against gay marriage? Well, yeah. They think they're not doing any harm and they're leaving them alone, but they voted against allowing them to get married. So I'm sorry. In this culture, that's doing them harm. You can't visit your spouse in the hospital. You can't inherit. This is just like being, black 150 years ago. You couldn't inherit property. You couldn't vote. It's ridiculous.